It was just like the old bicycle thing. It was immediate and intimate and hilarious to be with her again. In some ways, I won't say bittersweet, but certainly it was reminiscent because the fact that when we looked at each other, we realized we were the only two left from the original. And but it was heartwarming to see her. And we've communicated over the years via emails, etc. But I hadn't seen her again. The last time I saw her was at Marquee Post's memorial. So it was happy to see her in circumstances where we got to work together again instead of just being at a place where we had to be, because of our love of the people who had passed. It was absolutely no way that I would do that. Just as a vain man, thinking that I don't want to be compared to myself when I was 35 years old. And now being a 76-year-old man, eventually, after talking to Melissa long enough, the actor in me started thinking, as opposed to the person in me started thinking, that it's actually kind of an interesting acting task to actually be able to look at yourself 40 years in the past and what happened to that character. Where is he now in his life? Where's the funny in his life now? And so that became more and more interesting as we began to talk about the reality of where we would find him, what he is doing, and how he is pulled back into the orbit of the people and the place that he worked all those years ago.
Thanks.
Today, Chuck Lorre came onto the stage the other day to visit with Melissa and to say hi, and I'd never met him before. And something he said to me about the original show struck a chord, in that he would watch the show and there would be a joke. And he said he could tell that we were saying to the audience, here's a joke. If you like it, fantastic. If you don't like it, just wait 10 seconds, another one's coming. And, that's about it. As Bob Hope once said, when vaudeville died, TV is the box they put it in. And I think that's what we care about, is making people laugh, and finding ways to help that along is what we're really about. And the heartwarming stories that happen between the people also have to be important, because we are a family in essence, as workplace comedies always are, and always obviously grow to be. But the primary purpose is to cause laughs. It's, as shallow as that sounds, I think it's pretty high calling in these times of seriousness and somewhat depressing news around sometimes. So, yes, I think it's a good vehicle for jokes. Just before interviews, Reinhold Wigge, who created the original, and I don't know if it was his original, if he originated this, but he said that the secret to a good sitcom is lots of doors, because you can bring any story you want into and through those doors. When you look at Night Court and you look at Cheers and you look at any workplace comedy, the world can come through the doors. And Night Court certainly is that. Cheers was certainly that. And I think that still holds true, that we can bring anybody we want into our world and use them as fodder for humor. But yes, certainly. I mean, the fact that an audience reacted to it as they did, and I don't give myself any credit for that. I think that Melissa Rauch has such a huge following because of her wonderful work on Big Bang, and also the format of Night Court. People were, I think, somewhat nostalgic about that and felt good about that. I suppose having my old face appear on it gave some people a connection to the original that they might not have had with just a whole new cast. But I am convinced that the show would have been as successful with or without me. I grew up in New Orleans in the early, late 50s. I was born in 47, so early television was the bread that I ate. And as a boy, watching Jackie Gleason and Art Carney and Sid Caesar and Howard Morris and Carl Reiner and Ernie Kovacs and Steve Allen, that level of physical humor, because it was still, as I said, vaudeville, right? So it was slapstick. There was a lot of physical comedy. And that's what I teethed on. I didn't know it at the time, because I was not a very funny person, I don't think, when I was a child. But I just loved watching those men, and the idea that they had that kind of effect, and watching their timing and not knowing that I was absorbing this, I don't think. But I always seemed to have a facility of that very elusive quality for timing, to know how long to pause between setup and punchline. It just something that naturally came to me. But it's because of, I think, watching those men and women, Imogene Coca, I mean, just Lucille Ball, and on of all the people that influenced me as a young boy, not knowing that they were influencing me. They were just making me roll on the floor in laughter. But when I thought about doing it myself, a lot of those recalls came from that early exposure I had to people like Sid Caesar and Carl Reiner, and particularly Art Carney. I thought Art Carney was one of the greatest clowns on television, literally a great clown. And I tried to emulate that as best I could. You know, everybody is laughs at somebody falling down the stairs if they don't get hurt at the bottom. And so all of those guys and ladies were physical comics. You know, they were of that generation from vaudeville that did slapstick, because you're in a big theater like that. You have to be big for the audience to be able to see you. We didn't have screens or monitors. You had to play to the back rows. And so you had to be big. And I think television allows you that, particularly the sitcom format allows you that. Because I'm not sure who said it, but it may have been Norman Lear. Norman Lear, I think, said, comedy is in the two shot, not in a close up. There's very little comedy in a close up. There is comedy in a two shot. And so that means it's wider, so you have to be a little bigger and gesticulate a little more to bring that to life. An egotistical man-child. An egotistical old man. Yeah, it was. You know, we're on stage 10. We spent 8 years on stage 9, so I'm just directly across the street on the lot from where we did the original. And because of the demise of my beloved cast members, walking onto the stage for the first time was a bit like walking into a ghost town or walking into your childhood home when you knew all your relatives had passed away. And there's still those moments because there's no one here other than, you know, I suggested a script supervisor, Susie, who was on the original. So, and also Pixie, who was our UPM, was on the original. So there are two people from the old world that I can look at and go, oh, do you remember when, etc. But originally to walk on the set, and also because of the timing, I mean, Charlie passed away while we were doing the pilot. Marky passed away right before we started. Richard passed away right before we came back from the strike. So there's this enormous amount of loss. And yet when I then walk on the stage and I see Melissa and India and Lakrita, this brand new team of people who are so enthusiastic and so talented, and that this old man gets to revive that feeling again of being with a group of people who he enjoys working with and who give him pleasure, and hopefully he assists them in keeping sort of the gestalt of the original feeling of the show together, because, you know, I'm haunting the halls now myself with them. So yeah, there you are.